Howdy, how we doing? Welcome back to my channel. God, it has been a while. I think I said last time that my upload schedule was going to be 2 times a week. Well, the upload schedule is going to be Mondays and Wednesdays. Ambitious. And worst case scenario is once a week. So hopefully Mondays or Wednesdays. But like I said, I'll keep you guys updated with how I'm going week to week. We well and truly failed that one. I apologize to those of you that were keeping up to date with all my YouTube videos. I'm really, really sorry. So I just fell off hard. Work got overwhelming, life got overwhelming, and things sort of fell off on YouTube. But I really, really want to give this a good hard crack for the last half of this year. So here we go. This is going to be the first video. Today we're going to be learning how to color grade in Photoshop like a pro. This is a technique that I learned from a friend of mine, Miles of Color, on Instagram, and I had my phone on silent, but apparently not my computer. Don't you love that? So like I was saying, this is a technique that I learned from my friend Miles of Color, or Miles McCormick. I think that's how you say your last name. I apologize if it's wrong. But yeah, this is a technique I learned from him. It's a fantastic technique that you can use mainly with portraits, but I'm going to show you a way that you can use it with landscapes as well. So we're going to jump straight into Photoshop and go from there. It feels good to be back. So if you've spent any time on Instagram in the last, 3 months or so, maybe even 6, you would have noticed that there has been a ginormous increase in the amount of wild color manipulation, you can probably call it. You've probably been scrolling through your Instagram, doing your thing. Suddenly you see a post and you're like, oh damn, God, I know it's autumn here in Melbourne, but I didn't know the leaves got that red. And then you see it's on a carousel and you're like, oh, okay, let's go for a scroll. Scroll over and suddenly there's purple. And scroll to the next one and suddenly there's blue. Scroll to the next one and suddenly there's green. And you're probably wondering, how the fuck did someone do that? And I thought the same thing until I learned this technique. So we're gonna jump into Photoshop, and this is an image that I have gotten to this point here. It's an image of my friend Maddie Gilbert. If you spent any time on my portrait account, you'll know that a lot of the images on there are of her. So she's a beautiful model, she's beautiful at posing, she's very good at what she does, and she's a lot of fun to shoot with. So I was shooting with Maddie, we went down to a local park and we found some leaves that were, autumn's beginning to end here and winter's beginning to start. So the leaves are nice and lush and green, but we're not finding many of the funky colored leaves that you do in autumn. So we wanted to create something a little bit wild after the fact. This is the image before any color manipulation. And then this is the image after all the color manipulation. So the way that you do this technique is, I'm gonna turn off all these layers here, and this is the main folder that is in charge of changing those colors. So you'll notice a huge amount of change there. All I've done for this, and I don't know if there's a name for this technique. If there is, if you've heard this from someone else, if you've heard someone call it anything, drop it in the comments below because I don't know the name for it. It's essentially layering adjustment layers. And the reason why this technique isn't possible in Lightroom is because Lightroom doesn't let you layer adjustments, or it doesn't let you layer manipulations. It simply lets you move sliders and adjust the image from its base position. Whereas that differs in Photoshop, you're able to layer changes on top of each other. So once things become blue in a Photoshop file, the next adjustment layer that you add on to that is manipulating those blues. Whereas once something becomes blue in a Lightroom file, it still sees that color as what it was originally. So you can't manipulate those colors. So all you're gonna do here is I'm gonna turn these off one by one, or turn them on one by one, and then I'm gonna go in and show you what they are. And all they are selective color adjustment layers. So what I've done for this first one here is I've turned it on and I've gone into each individual color. Depending on the image, this is gonna be a lot of guessing and a lot of just moving sliders and seeing what happens. I like to have a goal in mind when I go and do it, but it is a lot of just moving them around and seeing what happens. So for this first one, I jumped straight onto the yellow because yellows often manipulate greens a lot more than greens. It depends on the image. So I moved these sliders around and you notice here how much I've moved them around. Same thing for the greens. and I think I left it at there, and I might have touched the neutrals. No, for this one I didn't. The next one, I've done the same thing, and you'll notice the bigger change there, and that's because, like I said, with Photoshop, you're able to layer adjustments, and once things start to become different colors, you can really begin to move them in the direction that you want to. And the same thing here. I would have manipulated the yellows a little bit, manipulated the greens, and I think I've started to manipulate the cyans. I have here, and that's why you're getting that strong change. And the same thing for the blues. The next layer, I've gone ahead and I've done exactly the same thing again, exactly the same thing again, and exactly the same thing again, and exactly the same thing again, until you get to a color that you're satisfied with. Once you've gotten to this point, you'll notice that if you haven't used a layer mask, your entire image has been manipulated. And the only thing you've got to do that is, I'm going to turn on my Wacom tablet here. The only thing you got to do to change that is go ahead and throw a layer mask on top of the group that's changing your colors. And you're going to hit the, I don't know what it's called, the dash key. And that's going to show you what your layer mask is affecting. And all you want to do is, if you know how layer masks work, black removes, white reveals. You want to pick a black brush at about 100% opacity, nice and soft, and all you want to do is go ahead and paint over your subject with a black mask. And what that's going to do is that's going to remove her from the mask. And it's as simple as that. Once you've removed her from the mask, then you can make those changes without affecting your subject. Or if it was the case of a landscape, you can make those changes without affecting the sand or a person or the trees or a particular color that you don't want to manipulate. Once you've done that, you obviously need to go ahead and make your adjustments to the entire image. And that's doing the same exact technique again. It's as simple as layering, like we did before, selective color adjustments on top of each other until you get to a point that looks natural. Obviously, once if you're changing blue, green leaves to blue, then your skin tones are going to look all out of whack, because the colors around us manipulate our skin tones. If I'm in a room that's full of blue walls, my skin is going to look nice and blue. If I'm in a room that's full of green walls, my skin is going to look nice and green. If I suddenly change that color, my skin is still going to stay green. So you need to go ahead then and change the entire image together using the exact same technique, and you'll achieve something that looks a lot more balanced. And then once I've done that, all I've done is gone ahead and added some tone. So that is how you can use I don't even know what you call it, layered color grading in Photoshop. We can call it layered color grading. Layered color grading in Photoshop to achieve some stranger or more intense manipulations to your image. Now, what I've done, how I've used this technique with landscape photography, you're probably thinking like, Tom, this is great, but I don't take portrait. I don't want to change my leaves to blue, red, or purple. And that's great, because you can use it to achieve some blue ass water. All I've done here is the exact same technique, but I haven't had to use a layer mask to manipulate it. All I've done is gone ahead and changed those greens from that nice sort of natural green-ish aqua color. I really wanted a deep blue, so all I've done is change that to a deep blue. And I've used the exact same technique, plus color lookup adjustment, which made a tiny little difference, a color balance adjustment, which is quite a strong manipulator, and then selective color adjustments. And you'll notice how many I've used for that particular image. So there, it's as simple as that. We're gonna call it layered adjustments. That is how I achieve some of my more intense color grading on my images. You've probably noticed that my color grading's gotten more specific and more intense in my feed recently, and that is the technique that I've been using. You can use this instead of using things like saturation, vibrance. I tend to do most of my color grading these days in Photoshop. If you're still very intimidated by Photoshop, this is a very, very simple tool that you can go ahead and use. Import your image into Photoshop once you've completely done everything else, and just make this difference, and it will make a ginormous impact on your images. So yeah, that's how I changed this image to this image. That's how I changed all of these images here. And that's how I changed the color of this water from that natural aqua green color to a more punchy blue. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you're happy that I'm back. I'm enjoying being back. If I'm a new face, my name's Tom Noske. Tom Noske on Instagram, Tom Noske on YouTube, and Tom Noske everywhere else. If you've enjoyed this video at all, I would really appreciate if you could head over to any of my socials and give me a follow over there. But until next time, I'll see you guys later.